Well, unfortunately, it's been a disappointing morning. I came out basically to rebuild the carbs, do the tune-up. All the other parts came in except for the plug wires. So I was going to do everything but put in the plug wires. And I come out and discover that I can't trim or tilt the port side motor. Starboard motor's fine. And as you can see, since they're both up, they both went up just fine. Outside of sitting out in the rain, which I suspect this thing always sits out in the rain, I can't imagine what could be the problem. So I've spent the last, hour and a half, 2 hours troubleshooting. So I started with the connector, and then I went up to the relays. I tested the relays. I tested power coming into the relays as well as power coming out to the relays, as well as resistance on the relays. Everything's fine. Moreover, I swapped out the relays on the starboard side which are working for the port side, just to make sure. In fact, it's really nice having two motors to be able to test against. So then I went through and decided to try to hotwire it, which basically means pulling this cable off and hooking power directly to this. There's the green and blue wire, which goes down to the green and blue wire here, which goes down to the green and blue wire at the trim motor. And even with power connected directly to it, I couldn't get it to work. So I tried bypassing everything, including the switch, and hooking power directly up to that. I brought a jumper box and hooked power directly up to that, and that doesn't work. Then I just decided, okay, well, let's see if if power is getting to it. So I hooked up my multimeter and spliced into the wires as close as I could get it to the trim motor. I mean, it's only inches before it goes into the trim motor. And now when I click this, as you can see, we're getting power. So we're getting a full 12 volts from the switch all the way up through the relay, all the way down to here, right up to the trim motor. So it's really weird. Usually you can kind of hear the trim motor start to go bad. I didn't hear anything on this side, but it just simply will not work. You can hear the relays clicking. But I tested them for resistance anyways, because sometimes they'll click, but they still will be bad. And again, I swapped those out. So this was the trim motor that I was most concerned about, because listen to this. Okay, going down obviously is no problem. But I want you to listen to it going up. Actually, that's much better. Then when you do that cold, you hear a lot of screeching, and that trim motor seems to be really struggling. And unfortunately, the seals on these pistons are going to need to be replaced, because as you can see, they're leaking oil pretty well. But because of all of that, this is the trim motor I was concerned about. I was going to alert the owner that the trim motor may be eventually going bad on this one, and he needs to keep an eye on it, maybe order a new one so that when it goes bad, he'll have one on standby. Never heard any bad sounds coming out of this one at all. So I have no idea why when I put it away it was working, and now it's not. So I'm not sure how good this is going to show up. Probably not very well, but right here there is what looks like a ground wire that runs down there and grounds out right there. You really can't see the wire because it's just so tight in here. You see it? See there where my finger is? There we go. So there it is. So see that wire right there that I'm holding on to? That goes from right there down to this back bolt right here. So when I come over here, that same wire, I don't know if you can see it, but it's busted, it's broken, it stops right there. So there's nothing connected to this back bolt here. So what I did was I jumpered it from there to there, hoping that by mirroring the one that does work, that the one that doesn't work would start working. but that didn't seem to make a big difference at all. Still nothing, just nothing, not even a few sounds coming out of this trim motor. So probably where the wires go in right there to the stator that's inside of here, just somehow that probably came loose, or it's just not making a good connection. I really did not want to find this. I don't want to do this work. I've done these before. I've swapped out trim motors and it's a real pain in the butt. Just getting the parts really sucks, and then doing the job really sucks, because you can see these two bolts here you can get to fairly easily. That one back there, pretty difficult, but the fourth one that we can't see, that's all the way behind that, nearly impossible to get to. There's just like almost no way to get to that. So I'm gonna alert the owner, let him know that I'm just going to go ahead and start working on the carbs as planned. I'll manually drop this one down and see what he wants to do about the trim motor. Continuing to use the starboard motor as a reference to troubleshoot the port side. I noticed this right here that goes back and around and goes into this bolt right here. So looks like a ground to me. So I decided to come over here and try to follow that. Number one, it doesn't go to the same bolt. It goes past it and then goes up underneath. So I'm not really sure why that is. But then I decided to pull this sheath back a little bit and discovered this. So I wonder if that could be part of our problem. That doesn't look like it just broke. The reason there are little holes there is because I tried to probe it with my multimeter, but I'm not really sure why that's disconnected. It's not uncommon to see, there's where they would connect. It's not uncommon to find stuff disconnected, like for instance this one shipped with a oil injection system, and the oil injection is plugged off so that they could just do premix, which I totally agree with. But that's just an example of how things, get disconnected. So I'm going to try to probe this and see if what kind of signals I get, and then maybe just reconnect it, see what I get. So as you can see by those end pieces, that definitely did not break today or last week when I put that away. That's definitely not a new cut. So this has been cut for a while, so I'm truly doubting that whatever I do here is going to fix it with these two wires. Okay, so I happen to have another trim motor that I unfortunately do not think is going to fit to replace this one. That would have been amazing. But anyways, I've got this additional trim motor from another job, so I went ahead and hot wired it to the leads that go directly to the trim motor. The only thing in between those leads and the trim motor is that little contraption right up there, which, to give you a better view of it, is this thing right here with that little lever and stuff. So as you can see, the green-blue wires do go into and past that unit first. I'm not sure what that's for. I haven't been able to find it online to identify what that is. I assume it must be it's probably the trim tilt indicator, I'm guessing. Anyways, that's the only thing I can see that might prevent power to get directly to the trim motor. But with this one connected, I'll show you that we are definitely getting power to it. Okay, of course it popped off in the middle of my video. The reason it's jumping like that is because it has a lot of torque. So if I were to hold on to it, you would just see that center piece spinning. But this shows you that when I press this, so it's really looking like it's the damn trim motor. The last thing I'm going to try is I'm going to go ahead and jack it up, get it up as high as that, and I'm going to see if I can get at that piece where the green and blue wires go through, see if I could possibly bypass that, give it one more test. If I can connect to these wires right here and see if that works. I suspect it won't, but then I also want to see if I can get access to those 4 bolts in order to take that trim motor off. New trim motor is about 90 bucks, but the real chore is just getting to the motor to be able to remove it and reinstall it. It's looking like, so on my Yamaha, there were a couple of bolts here and here. There were like 3 bolts on each side you had to remove. 2 you had to remove, and then 1 more you had to tighten. Then you had to pound out this piston retaining pin, which is the biggest chore. Those things just get welded in there, and as you can see, that was not as bad as my Yamaha was, but that's not going to be fun. Doesn't look like there are any bolts on the side, so it looks like if I just relieve the tension from that and raise this up, and if I'm able to pound that piece out, then the entire trim tilt assembly should lean forward and give me access to that trim motor. That's basically how you change these things. It's just a bear of a job though. God, I really wish I would have just found a bad lead or wire somewhere, but since I've come all the way down to there, and clearly there, a new motor is working, I'm suspecting that the trim tilt motor just had really bad timing and decided to go out. Well, maybe it's good timing. I guess it's better that it went out here with me, a mechanic, as opposed to out in the middle of the lake, or when you went to trim it up, when you went to pull it out of the lake with no mechanic in sight. So I guess it's good that it went out here, but I mean, this boat has enough projects and things to fix. I don't need something new to fix, and this is not my ideal task at all. If somebody told me they wanted a trim tilt motor done, I might just not even take the job. But now it's here, and he did say fix everything, so we're gonna spend, I've been at this almost 3 hours, and that's 3 hours that we were not considering using for something like this. So I'm going to spend about another 30 minutes to an hour on it and just see where I can get, and then I'll call the customer. All right, never a dull moment, and never seems to pass on an opportunity to make things more difficult. So I'm going to have to turn the light on. Right. I'm not sure if this can be seen. I turned the light on, but through the viewfinder I can't see crap. Anyways, inside that hole is the manual release screw for the hydraulics, allowing me to manually tilt this up. Unfortunately, if you can see down in there, it is pretty much stripped and rusted. I've already tried to give it one try, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to manually release this valve from this side, and I don't think there is one on the other side. That is the thing of beauty. You wouldn't think so, but in my eyes it is. Whew! I did not know that I was going to get that done. So I finally got this screw loosened up. Honestly, when it kept slipping, like I would go to turn it and it would slip it's hard to explain. The end of the screwdriver would slip out of the head of the screw because it was so rounded over and stripped. So when it actually started to turn, I just thought that's what happened. And something made me look at it, and instead of it being horizontal, it was all of a sudden at an angle, and I knew that it had turned, and I just could not believe I finally got it done. Even then, it took a lot to get that bolt out. Several squirts of the freeze out and turning it, then some more squirts, turning it back and forth, and now it actually moves freely. Still need to see if we can replace that bolt, that screw, because it is still very much rounded over. I didn't torque it down really hard in order to get that to go up, but I'm going to look those parts up and see if I can replace that. So anyways, this is what the trim tilt motor should sound like. Honestly, I don't know why just releasing that. I honestly just thought releasing that was going to allow me to manually lift it up, which it did, in order to get to this motor to replace it. But what happened was, first I unscrewed it all the way, and this still wouldn't move at all. It was just stuck. I had that block underneath there, and then I had that jack underneath it, and it still wouldn't move up. So I just tugged on it and tugged on it and tugged on it, and finally it moved a little bit, and then I jacked it up a little bit, and I just felt like I was just going to get it up as high as I could so I could get to that trim motor, which didn't work. For whatever reason, I just decided, because I keep doing this every time I do anything, I just go up and hit these, and I hit this expecting it to do nothing but click like it was before, and now it actually works. I don't know why just releasing the pressure on the manual release valve fixed that motor. I don't know why it wouldn't turn. It's not like I heard the motor trying to turn. It wouldn't turn at all. It's like there was no power to it, but I knew there was power to it because, you know, I already repaired this, but because I actually put power directly to this. So I'm not sure why it worked, but it worked. So anyways, what I was saying was, this is kind of the sound that you want to hear. This is not the sound you want to hear. No, wait a second. How come that one's not going down? Uh-oh. You gotta be kidding me. Now this one has a problem? No, that's not possible. I only did this just to demonstrate the squeal that I was hearing. Wow. Now this one doesn't want to go down. What the heck is going on here? What's going on? I don't understand. I wasn't having any problems with this one. Now all of a sudden this sucker doesn't want to go. I don't get it. What is going on? Why doesn't it want to come down? All right, well, I'll work on that and get back to you. So, it's just amazing to me. Never a dull moment. So I get this one working. And this one, other than having a screeching motor, but no actual issues going up and down, now all of a sudden decides it isn't going to go down. And I don't know why. Except maybe when I pulled the cap off of the hydraulic fluid, that should be leaking out. There should be so much in there that should be leaking out. And clearly there is nothing in there. Let me show you what it should be doing. So when I loosen it even just a little bit, oh, maybe not because it's up so, yeah, there. See how it comes shooting out? So that one's empty. So we'll fill these both up and give it another try. Hopefully that fixes it. This was a two-hand job because they make these so that when they're full, they overflow like that. So I gotta put you down. Wow. Whew, no wonder people don't like to work on old boats. Holy crap. So, I feel like I should knock wood before I even say this. Got them both working again. So that one, the trim tilt motor wouldn't even work. You couldn't even hear anything. Just clicks. Now it goes up and down. And for some reason, the only thing that's I did really to fix it was to finally get that manual release valve unstuck. Now those bolt heads, those screw heads are stripped out. They really need to be replaced. But once I opened that up and freed the pressure, then for some reason that motor started working, which I cannot explain. But I'm not complaining, they're both working. I think the most important thing is just to recommend not to trim them all the way up, because what happened was I trimmed this one all the way up, and I guess it went up a little too high. There shouldn't be a too high for this. You shouldn't be able to trim it up so far that it locks it into place, but that's what happened. I pressed down and you could hear the motor. Difference was here you couldn't hear the motor at all. Here you could actually hear the motor spinning, but it wouldn't lift it up and down, and I struggled with that manual release valve. Now it's working. I also put some hydraulic fluid in it. Hear that sound? That's squealing. Shouldn't really hear that sound. It's not as bad since I put some fluid in it, but listen. That's not good. A high-pitched squeal is not good. I don't want to put it too high up. So, they're both working. So now after spending an entire day doing nothing but screwing with the trim tilt motors on both of these things, I'm finally going to get around to doing the work I'm supposed to be doing, which is the carbs and the spark plugs and the wires, and then fixing this lower unit. What a day.